call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Healy.
Here.
Trustee Milani.
Here.
Trustee Compass.
Here.
Trustee Reardon.
Here.
Trustee Radiszewski. Mayor Pupkow. Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the June 5th, 2023 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mrs. Chairman,
Trustee Milani.
move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of June 5th, 2023.
Second.
Were there any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Point of order, do we have Joni on the call?
Okay, thank you. Sanitary, 2023 Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation and Construction Oversight.
Madam Chairman,
Trustee Reardon.
I move to recommend to the Village Board to approve the bid for the 2023 Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project from National Power Rodding of Chicago, Illinois for $452,557.50 plus 10% contingency of $45,255.75 for an amount not to exceed $497,813.25, and recommend approving the proposal from RJN Group of Joliet, Illinois for professional engineering 2023 sanitary manhole rehabilitation project construction oversight services in the amount not to exceed $49,800.
Second.
Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski. Aye. Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Waterford Pointe, 11015 West 153rd Street, Sidewalk Variance.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to recommend to the Village Board denial of the variance request as presented in the staff report for this case requiring the construction of a 5-foot sidewalk along the east side of Wolf Road to be constructed with the following amendment, that they may also select a 8-foot asphalt walk multi-use path if so choose.
Second.
Is there any questions or comments?
I think there's a presentation on this.
I believe we do. You can go ahead and start.
Thank you. My name is George Orland. I'm the attorney for the petitioner. My address is 9501 West 144th Place. President is Don Jeans of Jeans Construction, who is the petitioner. I know you're familiar with this project, so I won't spend time describing the project. I know you know why we're here. We are seeking approval for a variance to allow the removal of the sidewalk, which is currently shown to be on the west side of our development along Wolf Road, heading north from 153rd Street. And we understand the staff's recommendation is to keep it, and we fully understand why. It's what the code says, and we understand that, and we understand the purpose of the code. It's a good purpose to provide for the interconnectivity of the village with different paths, multi-use paths, whether it's sidewalks or bike paths or whatever. We get that, but there's no code or rule, no matter how carefully it is written, that can ever provide for every single set of circumstances, which is why the code also allows the board to exercise its discretion when common sense dictates to provide for something that makes sense. And we think that this situation demands that the board exercise its discretion, or at least allows it to. And I'd like to explain why. 2 reasons. The first reason is our plan already provides for the interconnectivity to the existing and potentially future paths in the village. And could I ask you to, so I could just point at you. Could you go one more? One more. I'll tell you one. Keep going. 2 more. 1 more. Okay, that one. So the blue path, which you see on the west side of Wolf Road is already there. That's, and you're probably familiar with it, that's the multi-use, pedestrian and bike path. We are installing as part of our project, the blue path, which will also be a multi-use path along the south side or the north side of 153rd Street, which is the south side of our project. That path and the signal light button and crosswalk that we're also installing at 153rd and Wolf will allow full access to that existing path. We are also, if you could go one more, please. That yellow line up to the north there at the top of that cul-de-sac, we're also installing that path to allow interconnectivity to the potential north, any northern development that would come. So we think we do give the village the interconnectivity, which it should have, and which is good planning. But the second reason, which kind of these two reasons together, I think makes it make sense not to put this in, is safety. So if you could go back, please, to the one with the blue, that one, thank you. So we are, by installing the sidewalk, which is 480 feet, I think we are inviting people to walk down it or whatever, ride their bike down it or whatever, all the way to the end. The end will be a dead end. The next adjoining property past the retention pond is the fire district, which doesn't have a sidewalk and has no plans to have a sidewalk. I don't think anybody can make them put one in at this point. We are then inviting people to not go back the 480 feet and go back to the crosswalk and the safe button at the signal and cross over to the existing multi-use path on the other side of Wolf. We are inviting people to do what I would do, which is cross the street illegally at Wolf and get to the other side if you want to go that way. And I think that creates an unsafe situation that we don't need to do. And we don't need to do it because we already have and are giving them a safe way to get to that multi-use path. So those are the two reasons, and they kind of go together, that we are asking the board to exercise its discretion and grant us a variance for this sidewalk. Happy to answer any questions, too.
Madam Chairwoman? So I know the Plan Commission had a very healthy conversation about this. It was a 3-hour-long session overall, but I think 1 hour or so was dedicated to this. Of all the arguments, both through the petition and from what I heard through that Plan Commission, and not once did I hear about safety. So this is a new argument being presented to the board now. Here we are a year after the previous decision on this. What caused this decision? All of a sudden now you're presenting a brand new argument to the board.
So I listened to the tape today as well, and so I acknowledge that it was not the focus, but it was mentioned it was stated in our presentation. In fact, this is the same slideshow, and if you go to the last, please, not slideshow, but same presentation. It says, no, that was it, sorry. It says in the second bullet point, safety concerns crossing mid-road. So we did bring it up, and I acknowledge, if I wasn't listening for it, as I'm sure you weren't necessarily focused on that, it took different direction with the discussion with the Plan Commission. But when I look at this, and we are here asking the board again to exercise its discretion and apply what I think is common sense, I think that's the thing that jumps out at me. I mean, that's the thing that jumps out. You are, from a practical standpoint, you are without question asking people to go down that 480-foot sidewalk. Without question, it will dead end for a long time. And without question, a number of people are going to cross to to the other side to get to the existing road. And I think there's no purpose for it just because of all the factors, that I just discussed. We are connected. We are installing a safe crossover.
Just as a matter of procedure then too, just so that, my peers on the board understand, because this variance failed for the Plan Commission, it would take a supermajority of us, just so that we're clear, 5 of us, to overturn the Plan Commission's decision. And I think, going back to the 2022 decision, I just want to be clear, because I think there was a lot of conjecture being made about the comments being made at that time as to our decision-making process. I think back then in 2022, we were a lot more optimistic about IDOT, right? We were a lot more optimistic that by putting in money into the engineering plans that we would see that road construction continue. So for me, it was never a question of if we would put in the sidewalk, but when, and who would be responsible for putting it in. So I think then it's a question of, is it the state, is it the village, or is it the petitioner? Now, since then, in May, we've reconsidered our approach on pre-engineering work because, to be quite frank, I don't think that we're going to see the Wolf Road work in my lifetime. So with that said, then it goes back to my decision of, I do believe there should be a crosswalk, and it's consistent with what we did for 153rd. We didn't ask for variance on 153rd. We're asking for Wolf. And I get the notion now that it doesn't go anywhere today. But that doesn't mean it won't go anywhere in the future, and I know that Commissioner Schuessler had a lot of comments on this as well, and I happen to agree with his line of position. So on this matter, I would be sticking with either the 8-foot or the 5-foot path.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Reardon?
a couple of things. First of all, with Keith not here, is this, I know it needs to be a supermajority, but isn't that just 4 out of 6, or is it actually 5 with someone not here?
Counsel?
It's the majority of, well,
Who's present?
We have 6.
Yeah, so it's got to be 4.
I don't believe it's present. I think it's everybody,
So it's got to be 5?
present or not present.
Okay. Second, could you go back a slide, or I want to see, I have a question about one of them. Yeah, that one there. Your path that you're putting in that would then connect if something gets developed, is that on the other side of the fire department then? Does that go all the way through the back?
I think it goes,
This is the fire department here, right?
correct.
So this would connect to that land, that's the farmland behind.
Yes.
And it'd be open, it'd be ready to be connected with
Yes.
a bike path through there. Am I accurate on that?
Yes,
And there's gonna be all kinds of landscaping and trees along this side right here, along Wolf Road, correct?
Don Jeans, Jeans Construction. The path that's going to go on Wolf Road goes up to Lot B, which is that open land field there.
Here?
Right, that's where the path stops. Because,
Retention, this is all retention here?
yeah, it's, well, not retention, but it's a wetland. So you can't get the sidewalk through the wetland, and then when you get past the wetland, then you got the creek, and you can't get over the creek without building the bridge. So that path is probably never going to be extended. And that's why the Mayor Picow suggested putting that path from the cul-de-sac to connect into there in the future.
So, and that's kind of my question I was getting to is, I travel that road a lot. I live close by there. I travel there. I hardly ever see anybody on even the west side path. So if you're going to get people going through their neighborhoods in here, then you'll connect them to another, which is much more likely. I see people around my neighborhood riding their bikes internally inside.
Right.
I just don't see that many people on either side of those paths. So it's creating another sidewalk of people that don't really use it when there is an option at least on one side seems a little redundant.
Yeah, and as my attorney said, we're putting in a traffic signal button for them, a crosswalk to go from our path system across 153rd Street. And then there's another button on that side of the street to get the crosswalk to go across Wolf Road. So they've got both ways that they can use the path on east and west path on 153rd or get onto the path on the other side of the street. It's not an issue of money. You talked about with the path, the 8-foot path being cheaper. It's not the issue of money. It's just that I just think it's a path to go nowhere. It's going to be dangerous, and I'd be willing to put up the money, $20,000 that it costs for that sidewalk in cash in lieu. So it's not the money. I just don't think that sidewalk, and plus it's right up against those two townhouses there.
Another question. I don't know who will answer this, George, but do we have any, I don't know if it's data reports, are there any issues with the sidewalk on the west side? Have there been complaints about that? The neighbors that all live in that neighborhood, is there any issues with that one?
The
In
neighbors
terms
that
of
live,
traffic issues and?
the neighbors that live there are very high-maintenance people.
Well, I know you live there, so.
Yeah, and there's no problems with that. People, it is used.
Madam Chairman,
Trustee Healy?
I just got a goofy question. Does anybody maintain that sidewalk during the winter?
The one on the other side, the multi-use path?
Right.
Nope.
And this would be another path that's not maintained or anything, so, I don't know, my personal thing is I don't see that it seems duplicative to have two sidewalks parallel to each other. that, to me, there's not a crowding issue or anything like that. I mean, I think it's, I'm all for just keeping it on the west side.
Steve, would you like to give a little insight too?
So Commissioner Schussler did present a very good argument for the if not now, when. The goal ultimately is to have, and the ordinance requires, that sidewalks be put on both sides of every public street. With there not being any plan to be having Wolf Road expanded. Also, I don't know if they would replace a facility when they did that isn't already there. Kirsty, you have to fill us in on that one. But you know, it has always been our position that we have the facilities now. If the only issue is getting to the intersection, we can always ask the fire protection district to put their sidewalk in, or the next time they come in for a permit, we would make them put it in. They've made other improvements over the years as different facilities have gotten renovated. So, I mean, staff's position initially a year ago was that the multi-use path be put in. It was downgraded to a sidewalk. That's fine too. I believe there was testimony that there wouldn't be that much cost difference between the two at the Plan Commission meeting. So our preference would be to follow the comprehensive plan and the ordinance, because we felt our position, well, we didn't take a position, but from the analysis that was given, we didn't see a strong argument for the variance.
Now, what about a deed in lieu, like putting up money for a future sidewalk, should that area be developed?
I guess that's possible. Then whose job would it be to do that? Would it be our job to do the bids and install that? And then how long does that money stay there? Is there a time limit? We'd have to think about terms on something like that. Those are my thoughts off the top of the head. I'm sorry I didn't prepare for that question, but.
Are there any other comments?
Yeah, Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Malani?
If I remember correctly, I'm trying to think back because this was like a year ago. So we ended up at the position of we wanted the sidewalk because then it would also clean up, you know, the weeds and everything else that is there, you know, and it would present like a nice view to Wolf Road. And, you know, one of the concerns was the widening of Wolf Road. We've already stopped work on even thinking about that. It's probably not going to happen for at least the next 25 years, right? So we're not going to end up destroying something that we put into place. However, I also see the other side of this too. You know, is it needed right now? So, I mean, the in lieu of is also, I mean, there's several ways to fix this, right? You know, and, you know, I'm having kind of a little bit of a hard time to figure out exactly which is the right one. The side, I'm looking at a map of this because this is kind of hard to tell. So I'm looking at like the Google map, like, so this would end right before the fire station, the dirt path behind the fire station. Is that where this would end?
It ends before the outlot.
Right, that doesn't help me.
It's, I'm sorry, on that, it's, do you have a pointer?
So I see there's like a little tiny street there on like the top left corner.
See the white area as you go north? The big
Yes.
kind of triangle white area? It ends on the south part of that.
Okay, so where the retention area is coming in, like
Correct.
the gray and the white are coming
Yes.
together, it would end right about there. So, okay, so not too far. And trying to remember, is there like a connection to the path, like right where that sidewalk was going to end? I'm trying to picture what it looks like over there. And I thought there was like right there, there's kind of like a Y in the path, right? No, it's not.
On the other side, the path then immediately turns west along 153rd,
Right, so it goes around the subdivision
and then it goes all the way to Will Cook.
right. And I didn't know if we had plans to put like a crosswalk at that point or something like that.
I think that was always part of the plan for when we were going to do the Wolf Road widening,
Right.
but there is no plans right now for an intersection improvement there.
Any other comments?
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Compass?
So also looking at the map, I know it's not on the topic for this, but it is somewhat aligned. 153rd Street path, does that connect?
Does
So
it,
the path on the north side of 153rd that continues east, that currently does not connect to a path either, correct?
I don't think that it does at this time.
So the same argument would be made here as well, right? You know, the whole path to nowhere argument, but yet here we have a path on both sides of 153rd in compliance with the code.
May I respond, trustee?
Sure.
So I understand your point, and that's a good point. I was thinking about that today, actually. But what we are providing there is on the east part of our subdivision, then, that path with, then if you get on it, it goes to our point. It can take you right to the crosswalk, which we're installing the safe crosswalk, and then take you across the street to the existing Wolf Road Pass. So would you, sorry. Would you mind going back to that one with the blue lines? Thank you. So the blue there on the, the straight blue line on the south is the one that is not there now, as you point out, we are installing. But that would allow people in our subdivision or anywhere to enter that path and then go west to the intersection, this, safe crosswalk with the signal button, and cross over to the existing, blue network that is on the west side of Wolf Road.
But that's, maybe I misunderstood, that's not an argument necessarily for the east connection then, or the lack of connection there.
Correct. There's no, that is what it is, yes. And keep in mind, trustee, we're not here arguing against the positivity of having interconnectivity. We agree with it. We get it, and we certainly understand the staff's position. They're following the code. We're just asking that in this specific scenario, all things considered, safety and everything else as it exists today, including looking at the future, that we think it makes sense to not put this in, and that's what we're asking.
Madam Chairman?
Trustee Malani?
And I believe the reason the path on 153rd ends is because that's where unincorporated starts, correct? So we are building this with the hopes that someday we will incorporate that area, continue to build our path, and connect everything as we have been, right? So, that kind of almost justifies the same idea. We could, in the future, continue to build north. Someone might buy that land, and then we will be asking those people to build a sidewalk to connect everything. So, again, having a hard time, trying to decide what is right here because I see both sides. I'm just trying to weigh all of the data here. So it's like, we're asking you basically to do the same thing that you've done on 153rd. And I'm looking at that path on 153rd going, okay, I have to go down 153rd, have to cross 153rd Street, then I have to go across Wolf Road, and then I have to start heading west. So it's like I'm kind of crossing two streets, which isn't any safer than crossing one. So
No, except that the danger crossing at the north part of where the yellow ends is it's not a crosswalk, it's not a corner, it's nothing. It's jaywalking, right? It's in the middle of the street, and
Sure, but
and it's probably against I would assume it's against the law. And I think that by definition makes it unsafe or certainly less safe.
But with the signal reconfiguration, that can be changed.
Pardon me?
With the signal reconfiguration, that can be changed, right? We could put a button and a crosswalk there, right?
Sure.
Right. So problems can be solved.
Absolutely. If I can suggest, and Mr. Jeans brought this up already, and maybe a solution to cover the board's concerns, which I fully understand, the future, if not now. Now clearly I think everybody agrees we don't necessarily need it, but I understand that the concern is, when we do, the developer's done, and now what? Now, there's no remedy and the village has to pay for it. So as Don Jean said, he's willing to put up cash in lieu for the cost, and the village can have the money and do what they want with it. If it comes time where, 10 years or whatever, and all of a sudden there's development to the north, and you say, hey, we want that sidewalk, you don't have to worry about the developer because he's already given you the money. And, I think that would satisfy certainly the obligation of the village to make sure it maintain the connectivity and, is to the fullest extent possible, but, not have to do something now that may, like I said, invite, dangerous scenarios.
I know.
George, have we done this in the past with putting up a bond or putting up the money for future?
so a letter of credit is a kind of a normal thing that we do for, new subdivisions. But there's an end to it, right? We know that at some point it's gonna, we're either gonna use it or we're gonna return it. You know, for this organization, I don't think we have anything like that where I know in other organizations, stuff like this is especially on sidewalks, is they'll have to put up the money until some point when it'll get connected. Now, in my experience, when that happened, the money that was put up was not enough, right? Because at this point, it's gonna be a lot cheaper to put in the sidewalk with having all that equipment there, other than, you know, if we have to go back and do it, then now that adds costs and of course, inflation. So, you know, it's not unheard of. It can be done. We would, you know, it's just something that now, from an accounting standpoint, we're tracking on our books.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Healy.
Yeah, I'm just curious, it's just in a bigger picture, do we have duplicate bike paths, I mean, one on each side of the street throughout the village for every bike path?
I think if you look at the 159th, for example, when they did that, that was a requirement. There's bike paths on both sides.
But 82nd Avenue or 82nd Avenue, are we doing one on both sides of the street?
I'm gonna ask Rashid.
So for 82nd Avenue, we'll be putting it on one side because we're specifically working only on the bike path. But like Steve said, our ordinance calls for a sidewalk. We have upgraded to now bike paths, but it has to be on the both sides. That is our standard policy. If you look at majority of the village has sidewalks on both sides. The bike path is an upgrade, is a significant upgrade to what we like to interconnect for bike path, or multi-purpose path, that's a better word.
But 82nd Avenue doesn't have, right now, there's nothing on.
So Trustee Healy, 82nd Avenue is a county road from 143rd North, and we're working on a project right now to put bike path on 82nd Avenue. One of the reasons why 82nd Avenue does not have any bike paths is what we call is a prescriptive easement. Prescriptive easement meaning the property owner's property goes to the middle of the street. That's like almost 100-year-old, something like that, so I've talked to county about it. It's a challenge to get that right away from those homeowners because it's gonna be very expensive, because they'll be asking for money till the middle of the roadway. So that's a reason why I believe it has never been done on 82nd Avenue.
It sounds like common sense. So, thank you.
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Malani.
To go back to Kershid's point, to let me make sure I understand this. So current building codes say sidewalk on both streets for new construction. Existing construction's kind of like in 82nd Avenue's kind of point, even though it's slightly different, that was built how long ago? We're not talking about new construction, it's already existing. So, but we're also building the bike path along with the county, correct?
So Trustee Malani, you're right. For the last several decades, we've been doing this, that we've been putting it on both sides.
Right.
And the simple reason is that if we skip one property, then the next property could argue that it's not there, why should I put it? So
Right.
I think that's the logic that the village have used, that every property puts it so that we can add it. I can give you another example, is 108 and 143rd. You can take a look at that. It stops at a certain distance on the west side. And then whenever that rest of the property will be incorporated, one of the requirement will be is to add that sidewalk.
Right.
And curb and gutter, so.
So thinking of the three options then, so we have sidewalk, bike path, which are negligible in cost. They're pretty close to the same. The same amount of work would have to be done.
And Trustee Malani, if I could add on that, the material on both facility is different. Sidewalk is concrete and
it's
multi-use path is asphalt. So
Right.
there's a cost difference there.
Right, okay. So, and then the third one is this, bond or cash in lieu, which that's definitely a decision we couldn't make here tonight. We would have to go back, do some research, and actually come up with a plan on how we could do that. That's nothing that's gonna happen here today. So, I think our decision up here is, are we comfortable, with continuing the sidewalk or not? So, I mean, unless we decide to table this and then bring it back for discussion with information about the cash in lieu. So I think I don't see any other options.
If that's the board's direction, we will definitely, we don't meet for, a month now. So if that's the board's direction to research the cash in lieu, we will definitely do that.
Are you in agreement, trustees, with that? What's your feeling?
The problem with tabling it is, we're delaying this a month. That's the one negative behind it. So.
Does this delay your project a month? I mean, this is something that the project could go on. Pardon me? Okay. Well, are there any other comments or? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
A point of clarity, if I say aye, does that mean we want the,
The motion on the floor is to deny the variance. So if you say yes, you're denying their petition for a variance.
I'll say no.
Trustee Reardon.
No.
Trustee Radiszewski. No. Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
No.
Motion fails 4-2.
Motion fails 4-2.
So I think we have to, now the or that's on this, do you see it?
We're done.
Recommend approving them.
Yes.
So, point of order, Mr. Attorney, the question then is, since this was a plan commission vote that failed, the vote to deny also failed, I think that leaves the original plan in place, does it not?
This is a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, so the final vote's going to be taken there. But under the municipal code, if you are trying to overturn the decision of the board, then you need at least 2/3 of the trustees, which would be 4 trustees voting in favor of overturning that decision, which you don't have at this point.
If I could just, it would be 5 out of 7. Is that correct?
The specific language of the municipal code says for 2/3 of the trustees voting, of 2/3 of the trustees of the corporate authorities.
Right.
Whether or not you're here or not.
Correct. So that would make it, wouldn't that make it 5? Because a majority would be 4.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Are there six trustees?
There's 7 total with the mayor, there's only 6 here.
But there's six trustees.
I don't think it's present. I mean, we can look it up, but I'm not sure if it's the trustees present. I think it's total.
It is.
So you're saying the mayor,
I'm saying 2/3 of 6 trustees is 4.
I think we're talking about 2 different things. Is it?
It doesn't count the
is it
mayor, I
majority
think, is
of the
Doesn't
trustees
count the
only?
mayor. It
does
counts the
not count the mayor.
trustees.
okay,
The language of the act says trustees, not the mayor.
okay.
So where are we then?
So right now, where we are is again, this is not before the village board, it's the committee making a recommendation to the village board. That passes, the recommendation does, but at the time you vote on it, if the same outcome happens at the board meeting, the motion's gonna fail.
So do I need to make a motion for the second part of what's on our agenda here, is to move to approve the variance request that they're asking for? Because that's the second part of this. Sean read the first part.
You're still gonna need 4 trustees.
I understand
voting
that.
in
You
favor.
can make a motion to do that, yes.
So I will make the motion then. Madam Chairman, I apologize.
Trustee Reardon?
I move to recommend approval of the variance request as presented in the staff report in this case, eliminating the sidewalk along the east side of Wolf Road.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Madam Chairwoman?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We still have discussion.
Yep.
So now what we have on the table is to remove the sidewalk without the possibility of the financial aspect of this, right?
Well, Madam Chairman,
Trustee Reed.
didn't we hear from the petitioner that he really can't, that he couldn't accommodate that? He was not going to, he had a month, he can't wait the month that it would take us to meet again, to research it. That's what I thought I heard. That was the reason I did it that way. Am I wrong? Is that
No,
a
you're
month?
correct.
A month, you're not interested in doing that? I mean, I know it was a suggestion just in discussion, but now that you think about it, knowing that we can't meet for a while and it would take research, that doesn't really solve anything.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Mr. Clerk, could you call the roll on the no sidewalk?
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
No.
Trustee Compass.
No.
Trustee Radiszewski. Trustee Radiszewski. Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Yes.
So that went 3-3. That motion fails.
The vote was 3-3, right?
Yep.
That motion fails.
Motion fails 3-3.
2023 Land Development Code Amendments.
Thank you.
1.
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Compass.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the Plan Commission recommended action as presented in the staff report regarding case number 2023-0424, also known as Land Development Code Amendments.
Second.
Any discussion?
So, Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Compass.
So just to be clear, because I know we split this into 3 sections, again, this is a part of a 3-hour discussion. I think this was about an hour and a half or so on the Land Development Code. This particular first initial motion is to approve everything that's been suggested for amendment, with the exception of the bicycle parking and the opaque screenings. Is that correct?
Yeah. Correct.
So not that I want to go through another hour and a half, but does staff have
I think at
just a
least an
quick
hour.
review as to, so.
Yeah, so this, these were just a series of standard amendments. Can you go to the next slide? Thanks. So one of them is just to update how frequently we publish the map. We only actually publish it once a year, but the code says we're supposed to do it twice a year, so it's not our practice. The state statute says we're supposed to do it at least once a year. We do update the GIS in real time, but the actual formal approval of the zoning map we feel should be consistent with the state statute, so that's the First Amendment. The second one is to end some confusion with the former group called Open Lands and the district called Open Lands, to just call it open space. So say what it actually is, so there isn't any confusion about land that was purchased under the foundation that used to exist and the board, the commission that used to exist. The third one had some clarification because we've had some changes to what is included in a sport court with pickleball and all these other things. So we're making the definition a little more generic. The next one had to do with our perpetual problem we're running into with the inadequacy of the parking requirement for medical uses. This does not affect anything that currently exists, but all new medical uses would be at a 1 per 200 requirement rather than a 1 per 300 square feet requirement, which would avoid a lot of the variances they're requesting for putting in more parking. We have a 20% cap above and below the exact requirement, so that corrects that, which was a request of the Plan Commission and the board in the past. Go to the next slide.
Apologize.
And then there's a bunch of engineering amendments. Most of these are technical. When we start accepting it, develop things like streets, a lot of it is changing the title of who's responsible for what and when, which is just cleaning up stuff from when our the departments split apart. And some of the other things we've been doing is anytime there were some specific design requirements where we called out everything explicitly in the code, but these things change over time, we're now adopting these things by reference, so you don't have to go in and figure out what the most current sewer connection is or stuff like that. So we're just adopting these things by reference. that's something we want to continue to do with some other things too. And that's pretty much it on these. This was passed unanimously, recommended for adoption.
So I just want to thank staff, and I also want to thank the commissioners, particularly for making sure that they were active on the microphone. It was a good discussion. So no issues with these changes.
Any other comments? Mr. Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy. Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski. Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
2023 Land Development Code Amendments. 1, bicycle parking.
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Malani?
Move to recommend to the village board to approve the Plan Commission recommended action as presented in the staff report regarding case number 2023-0424, also known as Land Development Code Amendments.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Malani?
So the question of bicycle parking comes up like constantly up here. And, so I was looking at the new changes and just doing some math. So for a 100-space parking lot, we expect 10 bicycles to be parked out there.
Not anymore.
But that's
It would be
what's highlighted as what is coming in, correct? 10%.
currently it's 10%. We're reducing it to 5% for most, almost all.
5% for non-residential.
For commercial, non-residential, except for a couple
Okay,
institutional
so
uses.
that was the part I
Yeah.
wasn't too clear. So, okay, so for non-residential, 5%, so 5 per 100, and residential, we need 10 bicycles for
So
100 spaces?
the issue with multifamily is a little bit different, and a lot of it has to do with where bikes go. A lot of places we don't allow you to put them on your balcony, for instance. They can't be seen. So they end up in people's units, or they end up in hallways or places where they're not allowed by fire code. So it's making sure that we accommodate anyone who has a bike. If they don't have a garage space, where do you store your bicycle? So that's why the requirement is remaining where it is. And that is not uncommon for a lot of multifamily codes. And it's a problem with a lot of places in more urban areas, especially where if you have your bike for recreational purposes, where do you keep it if you live in an apartment?
Sure, and then some of the other, areas like cultural centers and things like that are called out. I mean, it's like those are, not necessarily high traffic areas all the time, would
Right,
we-
but so for schools and things like that, where we do want to encourage bicycles, parks, we just want to make sure that for when those events do occur, there might be something where families might come and they may all ride their bike to the event. That's why the institutional uses is staying at 10%. But for the vast majority of things, it's being reduced. And the big change, which has been a sticking point, is that we're no longer counting spaces that are used for car storage, so with the auto dealers. So this will basically bring it down to 1 or 2, and that's just enough for the person who may be getting their car repaired, and they've got to get back and forth so they can lock their bike up.
Right, okay. And I guess the other question I had around that then were within 50 feet of an entrance. I feel to me, that seems like it's kind of like bringing everything closer to the entrance instead of, which might cause people to have to walk around them. Someone could trip over one. It just didn't make sense to me, but I guess if that's what we're putting in place and everywhere.
But that's the existing rule. We didn't look at that because that wasn't the initial request
Right. That's outside of the scope of the changes.
that we were proposing based off of what the village board and the plan commission had asked us to look at this time.
All right.
And
Thanks
we're
for
open to potentially changing that again, but not, we didn't look into changing that distance requirement.
Sure. Oh, thanks for the clarification.
One thing that does do is it ensures that the spaces get distributed
Right.
in a shopping center, for instance, that they're not all clumped on one long end and that they get more spaced out. So that's one of the benefits of that kind of spacing requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Compass?
So for section H1A, I have no issues. I think the use there makes a lot of sense. I think for B, when we talk about non-residential uses, I think, my personal take on this is I think the market should decide. I think that, commercial properties know their customers, know their workers, know what their needs are, or they should, or else they won't be there anymore. So I think with that in mind, I would move to amend and strike H1B, which requires 5% of the required motor vehicles for non-residential uses.
Do we have a second? Call the roll on the amendment.
Would it be any discussion?
Discussion, I'm sorry. Call the roll on the amendment, please.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy. Aye. Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski. Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Call it the original motion as amended.
Call it on the original motion as amended.
Trustee Malani. Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy. Aye. Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski. Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
2023 Land Development Code Amendments, corner side yard screening requirements.
Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Compass.
Move to recommend to the Village Board to approve the Plan Commission recommended action as presented in the staff report regarding case number 2023-0424, also known as the Land Development Code Amendments. Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Compass.
So this one, again, long conversation with the Plan Commission. This one was separated because I think there was a lot of discussion around the yard screenings, but, and Mr. Attorney, please keep me honest on this, but I believe that this was not passed by the Plan Commission as a section, and that it was requested this return back to Development Services, so we're here really just to discuss if there's any other changes or.
Well, I guess, counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were going to either take the recommendation or not take the recommendation.
Okay.
So you could choose to adopt it. The discussion was very robust on this one. We tried to come up with some alternatives, and this was something from quite a while back when we passed a similar amendment for pools. The rationale for that's a little bit different, but so should we make this the same for all accessory uses? So we explored that. The discussion from the commission was really like how and is this really going to achieve the screening? Are we going to have like portions of fences or clumps of landscaping to try to hide a shed? Is a fence going to really, so there was no amendment made, they just voted it straight down.
And I don't have the minutes in front of me, but was that a unanimous vote?
I don't remember, it's probably in the report. I know there's at least 5. I'm pretty sure, I'm sorry.
No, no
I
worries.
don't remember. We're still, the meeting was only 13 days ago, so we're not quite done getting everything up.
And it was long.
Yeah, it was a very long meeting.
Any other comments? Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Compass.
No.
Trustee Radiszewski. Trustee Healy.
Point of order. I thought we're agreeing with them. They recommend to vote this down, the Planning Commission. I recommend to the Village Board to approve the Planning Commission's recommended action, which was to not require this.
So as presented in the staff report,
Gotcha.
It is saying yes.
Okay. So no is, I just want to be clear that no is agreeing to not require this of homeowners.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
That's correct.
Trustee Healy.
No.
Trustee Malani.
No.
Trustee Reardon.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
No.
Fire Code Amendments.
Madam Chairwoman?
Trustee Compass.
Move to recommend to the Village Board to adopt the latest edition of the 2018 International Fire Code, IFC, first printing August 2017, as written by the International Code Council, ICC, and as amended by the new local revisions to that code as presented by staff to Title V, Chapter 5 of the Village Code.
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chairwoman.
Trustee Compass.
I'm happy to say that I will not have any discussion about the fire code today because I did meet with staff, which did resolve all the concerns and questions that I had about the fire code. So thank you all for working so hard on this.
I'd also like to echo that too. Thank you very much. We have a wealth of knowledge here in the room that was able to guide us through and make the proper decisions for the village. So thank you very much. Any other comments? Mr. Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski. Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Class 8 Kenworth T480 chassis and plow dump body purchase.
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Malani?
move to recommend to the village board to approve the purchase of 2 single-axle Kenworth T480s with Henderson Mark E dump bodies for an amount of $439,154 per Henderson Products Incorporated, quote number 171942, and recommend approval to use Sourcewell contract number 080818-HPI for the purchase of 2 Henderson Products Incorporated snow and ice control equipment packages and FSH V-Box spreaders installed for an amount of $128,704 per Henderson, quote number 159889.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski. And Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye.
Any non-scheduled visitors?
Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Malani?
move to adjourn.
There's a point of order.
Point of order. Are there any non-scheduled citizens or visitors that wish to speak?
Be for the next meeting. There's none for this meeting.
Okay, that'll be for the next meeting then. Thank you. Joni is not able, Trustee Radiszewski is not able to attend this meeting. Could you just let us know why, Joni? You have to state a reason. Okay, injured. Thank you, Joni.
Okay, Madam Chairwoman,
Trustee Malani,
now I move to adjourn.
Second.
call the roll, please.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski. Mayor Pro Tem Katsinas.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.